Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to get into the world of specialty chemicals with Aarti Industries Ltd.
AL.
Yeah, ALL. You've probably heard of them, especially with all the noise around their recent moves into renewable energy and advanced plastic recycling. And we've got their latest financial reports and the earnings call transcript ready to go.
Great.
So, are their financials really backing up these ambitions? Let's find out.
Yeah, their business is really interesting. I mean, they're a major player in specialty chemicals, focusing on things like agrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, and additives.
Mm-hmm.
But they've also recently stepped into the energy business with M&A.
MMA.
Yeah, methyl methacrylate, which is used as a fuel additive.
Interesting.
And one thing that's really interesting about how they report their financials is they do it two ways.
Okay.
They have standalone, which focuses on AL itself, and then they have consolidated, which includes all their subsidiaries, and a joint venture.
Gotcha.
So this gives us a really clear view of how all the different parts of their business are performing.
Okay, so looking at their financials for the quarter and 9 months ending December 31st, 2024, one of the first things that jumps out at me is the revenue growth.
Yeah.
Both standalone and consolidated revenue are up year over year and quarter over quarter. That sounds pretty promising.
It is. What's even more impressive is that this growth is largely driven by volume, particularly in their non-energy businesses.
Oh, wow.
So that means there's healthy demand for their core products, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
But here's where things get a bit more complex. Despite this volume growth, they are facing pricing pressure, especially in the agrochemical intermediates market.
I'm curious about that. What's causing this pricing pressure, and how is AIL dealing with it?
Well, you've got to remember that, the chemical industry is global.
Yeah.
And competition can be fierce. In AL's case, one of the big factors is increased competition from China,
Right.
which has just massive chemical production capacity.
Yeah.
So they're tackling this pressure in a few ways. They're focusing on making their operations more efficient to control costs. And they're also working on diversifying their product portfolio to offer higher value products that aren't as susceptible to price swings.
That makes sense. So they're not just sitting back and letting things happen. They're taking proactive steps.
Exactly. And it seems to be working. Despite these challenges, AIL has maintained good credit ratings,
Okay.
which shows that they're financially stable
Yeah.
and have a strong management team in place.
Okay, so revenue growth is looking good, but what about their profitability?
Right.
I see they reported healthy net profit, both standalone and consolidated.
Yeah.
But there's also mention of a Forex loss impacting a long-term loan.
Uh-huh.
What's that about?
Good eye. A lot of people get tripped up by this, so it's worth explaining.
Yeah.
This Forex loss is actually a non-cash accounting impact.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Imagine you borrowed money in dollars, but your income is in rupees.
Okay.
If the rupee weakens against the dollar,
Right.
like it has recently,
Yeah.
you'll need more rupees to repay the same dollar amount. So that's essentially what's happening with AL's Forex loss. The actual loan amount hasn't changed,
Gotcha.
but because of the exchange rate fluctuation, it looks like a loss on paper.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're actually losing money. It's more of a paper loss due to the fluctuating exchange rate.
Precisely.
Mm.
And if you look at their earnings per share, or EPS,
Mm-hmm.
it's solid for both standalone and consolidated, which is a key metric that a lot of investors will look at.
Now, you mentioned that we have the earnings call transcript.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of insights does that give us that we wouldn't get from just looking at these raw numbers?
Earnings calls are great because they provide context and color beyond the financials.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chance to hear directly from the company's leadership about their strategy
Right.
and how they're addressing, various challenges and opportunities.
So what did we learn from AL's recent earnings call? Anything that really stood out to you?
Well, they confirm what we saw in the numbers, emphasizing that they're actively addressing this pricing pressure through cost optimization, product diversification, and geographic expansion.
Okay.
But they also gave us some really interesting insights into their MMA product.
Ah, yes. Their venture into the energy sector. What do they have to say about that?
Well, despite recent weakness in the MMA market,
Yeah.
they're actually quite bullish on its long-term potential.
Interesting.
They're actively expanding their customer base
Mm-hmm.
globally,
Mm-hmm.
and they've even started offering bulk shipments to cater to larger clients.
Wow.
So, they're clearly investing in building a market for this product.
That's interesting. It seems they're taking a really long-term view, even when facing these short-term market challenges.
Yes, and it's important to remember that they've recently completed a significant expansion of their MMA production capacity.
Okay.
So they're clearly committed to making this product a success.
So it sounds like they're taking this multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
They're working on cost efficiencies, product diversification, geographic expansion, and then they're really pushing this new MMA product.
Exactly. And they also highlighted the importance of their new pilot plant,
Okay.
which is now operational.
Cool.
And this is exciting because pilot plants are where companies develop and test new products.
Yeah.
So it suggests that ALL is serious about innovation,
Right.
which is crucial for staying ahead in the specialty chemicals industry.
That makes sense. Innovation is key in any industry, especially one as dynamic as specialty chemicals. But one thing I found intriguing in the earnings call was their emphasis on this gradual ramp-up of MMA volumes. They even urged investors to be patient. What's your take on that?
That's a really good point.
Right.
ALL is clearly ambitious and excited about MMA's potential,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also being realistic. Penetrating new markets and securing major clients,
Right?
especially in the fuel additives industry, takes time. Sales cycles can be long,
Yeah.
and there are often complex regulatory hurdles to overcome.
Sure.
So they're basically managing expectations by acknowledging that significant volume growth for MMA won't happen overnight.
So it's a long game, but they seem confident in their ability to win it.
Exactly. They're playing the long game, and that's
Yeah.
something that investors should keep in mind.
Okay, so we've covered AL's financials, their core business, and their foray into energy. But what about those green initiatives you mentioned earlier?
Right.
Their push into renewable energy and plastic recycling. That's what really caught my attention.
Of course. Those are key parts of AL's story, and we'll dive into those right after this.
Sounds good.
All right, so ALL's definitely making some big moves when it comes to sustainability. Let's start with their renewable energy initiatives. They've signed 2 power purchase agreements.
Or PPAs.
Yeah, PPAs for solar and hybrid power.
Now, for those of us who might not be super familiar with PPAs, can you explain what those are and why they're so important?
Sure. A PPA is basically a long-term contract where a company agrees to buy electricity from a renewable energy developer.
Okay.
And this helps the developer finance the project, and it gives the company a stable long-term source of renewable energy at a fixed price. So it's a win-win.
So it's good for the environment and good for business.
That's the idea. And in AIL's case, they're aiming to get over 75% of their energy from renewables by the first quarter of fiscal year 2027.
Wow.
That's a pretty ambitious target,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows they're serious about reducing their carbon footprint.
It's impressive, especially considering they're in the chemical industry, which isn't exactly known for being the greenest sector.
True, but things are changing. More and more chemical companies are recognizing the importance of sustainability, not just for ethical reasons, but for business reasons as well.
Yeah.
Renewable energy can help them reduce costs, improve their brand image, and appeal to environmentally conscious customers.
It makes sense. Consumers are increasingly demanding sustainable products and practices, and companies are having to adapt. Now, what about that plastic recycling joint venture you mentioned earlier? That sounds really interesting.
It is. This is where AIL is really pushing the boundaries.
Hmm.
They've partnered with a company called Sustainability and Recycling Private Limited to develop advanced chemical recycling facilities. And their goal is to be able to recycle 500 tons of plastic waste per day by 2030.
500 tons per day. Wow, that's a huge amount. But what exactly is advanced chemical recycling, and why is it so important?
It's a good question because recycling plastic isn't always as simple as it sounds. Traditional mechanical recycling, where you basically melt down plastic and reshape it, has its limitations.
Mm-hmm.
It can only be done a few times before the quality of the plastic degrades, and it can't handle certain types of plastics.
Right.
Advanced chemical recycling, on the other hand, uses chemical processes to break down plastic into its basic building blocks,
Okay.
which can then be used to create new high-quality plastics. So this means they can recycle a wider range of plastics, including those that are difficult to recycle mechanically.
Right.
And they can do it over and over again without compromising the quality.
It's like giving plastic a second life multiple times over.
Exactly. And that's why this joint venture is so exciting. It has the potential to revolutionize how we deal with plastic waste, turning it from a problem into a valuable resource.
It sounds like AL is really at the forefront of this technology. What kind of plastics are they targeting, and what are they turning them into?
They're focusing on what are often called difficult-to-recycle plastics.
Mm.
Things like multi-layer films, mixed plastics, and contaminated plastics. These are the types of plastics that often end up in landfills or incinerators. Through their advanced chemical recycling process, they're able to convert these plastics into high-value chemicals that can be used to create new plastics, reducing the need for virgin materials. It's a great example of a circular economy in action.
Okay, so we've got AL making significant investments in both renewable energy and advanced plastic recycling. These are clearly ambitious initiatives, but what does it all mean for their business? Are these just feel-good projects, or are they actually going to impact their bottom line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's important to be realistic. These are long-term plays,
Yeah.
and they won't transform AL's financials overnight.
Well,
But if we connect these initiatives to the bigger picture,
mm-hmm.
there's a lot to be excited about.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, the renewable energy PPAs are expected to result in significant cost savings on power.
Okay.
That's a direct benefit to their bottom line.
Right.
And the plastic recycling joint venture has the potential to create a whole new revenue stream.
Interesting.
If they can successfully scale up their technology and create a market for their recycled materials, they could be looking at a very profitable business.
It seems like a win-win. They're doing good for the environment and potentially generating significant financial returns. But what about the risks? What are some of the challenges they might face in making these initiatives a success?
Well, with the renewable energy PPAs, the main risk is that the actual cost of electricity could drop significantly in the future. If that happens, AL might be locked into paying a higher price for renewable energy than they would for conventional sources. Of course, that's a risk with any long-term contract,
Right.
but it's something to consider. With the plastic recycling joint venture, the challenges are more complex. Scaling up a new technology from a pilot plant to full commercial operation is never easy. There are always unexpected problems that can arise, and it can take longer and cost more than anticipated.
So there are technical challenges, but what about the market? Will there be enough demand for their recycled materials?
That's a crucial point. Creating a market for recycled materials is essential for the success of this venture. AL will need to convince manufacturers to use their recycled plastics, and they'll need to educate consumers about the benefits of choosing products made with recycled content. Fortunately, there's a growing awareness of the importance of sustainability, and demand for recycled materials is increasing. But building a robust market will still take time and effort.
So it's a big bet, but one with potentially huge rewards.
That's a good way to put it. It's a calculated risk, but one that could pay off big time both financially and environmentally.
Now, I know you mentioned that these initiatives won't transform AL's financials overnight, but they've set some pretty ambitious growth targets. They're aiming for a compound annual growth rate in EBITDA of 20% to 25% over the next 3 to 5 years. You'll see that term EBITDA used a lot when analyzing companies. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And it gives us a clearer picture of their operating profitability. Do you think they can achieve this level of growth given the current market conditions and the fact that these initiatives are still in their early stages?
It's a good question. AL's target of 20 to 25% EBITDA CAGR is ambitious, especially considering they're facing pricing pressure and increased competition. Their push into renewables and recycling is promising, but as we discussed, those are long-term plays that will take time to contribute significantly to their bottom line.
Yeah.
Now, they do have a solid track record of innovation and execution, and their financials, while facing challenges, are generally sound. They have a healthy balance sheet, good credit ratings, and a history of profitability, all of which work in their favor. But they'll need to execute flawlessly on their strategic initiatives to pull it off. The ramp-up of MMA volumes and the scaling of their plastic recycling joint venture are complex undertakings, and they'll need to manage costs effectively and continue to find ways to differentiate themselves in the market.
AL's strategy of moving further down the value chain, focusing on downstream products and offering more solution-oriented offerings, seems to be a good move.
Absolutely. By providing tailored solutions that address specific customer needs, they can build stronger relationships and command premium pricing. It allows them to capture more margin and reduce their exposure to commodity price fluctuations. This shift from simply selling chemicals to providing value-added solutions is a smart strategy for any specialty chemicals company looking to thrive in today's market.
Sounds like you're cautiously optimistic about their prospects.
I would say so. AAL is a company with a lot of potential, but they also face significant challenges. Their success will depend on their ability to execute their strategic vision, effectively navigate a complex market environment, and consistently innovate to stay ahead of the competition. It's a mix of cautious optimism and watchful observation.
So for our listeners who might be considering AIL as an investment opportunity, what's the key takeaway?
AL is a company with a compelling story and a strong commitment to sustainability. But investing in them is not without risks. Their push into renewables and recycling is promising, but those are long-term bets that might take a while to pay off. Investors need to be patient, understand the risks, and have a long-term perspective. Do your own research, dig into AL's investor relations materials, explore their website, and see if their story resonates with you and aligns with your investment goals.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question.
I'm intrigued. What is it?
We've talked about AL's ambitions to become a leader in the specialty chemicals industry, but what will it take for them to truly solidify that position? What will make them stand out as a true leader, not just another player in this dynamic and competitive industry? That's something for you to ponder.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really goes beyond just, the numbers and projections. To be a leader, you really need that it's factor that kind of sets the best apart from the rest.
I agree. It's about, things like vision adaptability, a relentless pursuit of excellence, those intangible qualities.
Hmm.
AL has shown flashes of this, but can they maintain that over the long haul? That's the true test of leadership.
And it's a test that plays out over years, not
Yeah,
just quarters. AL needs to not only adapt to how the industry is changing, but almost help shape that change,
yeah,
push the boundaries, set new standards for, innovation, sustainability, performance.
for sure. It's a tall order.
Yeah.
But, they've set ambitious goals. Now it's up to them to deliver. I think their journey is going to be fascinating to watch because it really reflects kind of the dynamism, the challenges, and the incredible potential of the entire chemical industry.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Aarti Industries Ltd, we're leaving you with that challenge, that question to ponder. Can AL become the leader they aspire to be? I guess only time will tell. But one thing is certain, their journey will be worth watching.
Yeah, it's a journey that we, as you know, curious minds and fellow deep divers, will continue to follow with great interest.
And we encourage all of you to do the same. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you. You never know what amazing insights you might uncover. That's it for our deep dive today. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.